responses. A muscle contraction can be observed by removing a single muscle fiber and connecting it to a device that senses and records changes in the overall length of the muscle fiber. We stimulate that muscle fiber with an electrical stimulation. It gives you what is known as a twitch. Twitch is not a twitch like you think someone's has a muscle twitch on their face. It's similar, but it's an artificial laboratory generated response, but it helps us understand the physiology of muscle responses. The threshold stimulus is the minimum strength of stimulation a muscle fiber requires to contract. When the strength of the stimulus is reached, the action potential is generated. Impulse spreads through the muscle fiber, releasing calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, activating cross-bridge formation. Once that action potential from a motor neuron releases enough acetylcholine to produce the threshold stimulus, you get a muscle impulse. So the short way to say this is it's an all or nothing phenomenon. You get a contraction or you don't get a contraction. If you reach the threshold, you will get a contraction. So that twitch is the contractile response of a single cell. It has a latent period. That's the time that the acetylcholine must diffuse across the synaptic cleft. The period of contraction, when the contraction begins, and a period of relaxation when you are resetting everything to where it should be. And we can measure that with what's called a twitch. There is a length-tension relationship in muscles. The length of the muscle fiber before stimulation determines the amount of force it can develop. The optimum starting length in a resting length is the resting length of the muscle fiber. That's the greatest force that can be developed. A stretched muscle fiber will develop less force since some of the myosin heads can't reach the binding sites on actin. And shortened muscle fibers also can't get a maximum contraction because the compressed sarcomeres can't get any shorter than they physically can. So the optimal length is the resting length of the muscle fiber. As I said, contractions of a single muscle fiber are all or nothing. So if we want to have partial contractions of a muscle organ, we can grip things like a hammer differently than we grip things like a wine glass. We have different ways we can accomplish that. One of the ways is summation, in which we get a sustained contractions because we stimulate the muscle before it has a chance to rest. And that can lead to tetanic contractions, which are contractions that won't let go. They can be partial or complete tetany. We can also vary the number of motor units we recruit. So a motor neuron plus all of its branches to muscles will be a motor unit. So the whole muscle organ has many different motor units associated with it. Coarse movements are produced with large numbers of fibers in a motor unit, whereas precise movements are produced with fewer muscle fibers in a motor unit. And recruitment is increasing the number of motor units activated so we produce more force. Certain motor units are activated first, others activated when the intensity of the stimulus increases. And as that intensity increases, recruitment of motor units continues until all of the motor units are activated. Smaller motor units, the small diameter axons, are recruited first. Large motor units, large diameter axons, are recruited later. Summation and recruitment can produce sustained contractions of increasing strength. And keep in mind that whole muscle contractions are smooth muscle movements. There's always some tone to the muscle. It's always in a partial contraction state in a resting muscle. We call that muscle tone or tonus, and that helps to make sure they're ready to go when we need them to go. There are a couple of different types of contractions. You can have an isotonic contraction, which the muscle contracts, changes length, get an equal force. If it's concentric, you get a shortening contraction. If it's eccentric, we get a lengthening contraction. In the case of a isometric contraction, the muscle contracts, it's doing work, but the length doesn't change, so there's no change in force. There are a number of different types of muscle fibers. There are slow twitch fibers, which are oxidative, resist fatigue. They are seen as red fibers. They are abundant in myoglobin. They have a good blood supply with many mitochondria, and they have slow ATPase activity, and they are therefore slow to contract. There are also fast twitch fatigue resistant fibers, which are intermediate twitch fibers, intermediate oxidative capacity, intermediate amount of myoglobin. They appear as white fibers. They are resistant to fatigue, and they have rapid ATPase activity. And then there are the fast twitch glycolytic fibers. These use anaerobic respiration, which is why they're glycolytic. They have white fibers because they contain less myoglobin. Fewer mitochondria than fast twitch, more sarcoplasmic reticulum than fast twitch, very susceptible to fatigue. They have very fast ATPase activity, and they are very quick to contract. Clinically, use and disuse of skeletal muscle can lead to a couple of different options. Disuse is going to lead, use will can lead to hypertrophy, which is the enlargement of skeletal muscle upon exercising. It's what bodybuilders try to work on, hypertrophy. Or when they are disused, atrophy. That's a decrease in size and strength of a muscle that's unused. Atrophy is a big issue with astronauts in a low gravity environment. Aerobic exercise is going to stimulate slow twitch fibers. In response, the fibers increase their capillaries and mitochondria, whereas strength training, forceful exercise, stimulates fast twitch fibers. In response, those fibers produce new actin and myosin filaments, and the muscles enlarge. A healthy individual should balance the aerobic and weight training. And we'll stop there.